Visit Tudor Place February 6th through April 21st to experience the new installation, Ancestral Spaces, People of African Descent at Tudor Place. Curated in collaboration with the descendant community, this guided tour gives voice to the enslaved and free people who lived and worked in this historic house and recognizes that the site was supported by forced labor for generations. Tours are available Tuesday through Sunday. Advanced registration is recommended, but not required, at tudorplace.org. Once again, that's tudorplace.org. Today on CityCast DC. If you own a dog, you're going to want to hear this. We love our furry friends here in DC, but sadly, there have been at least 11 dognappings in the city already in 2024, and thieves are going after one breed in particular. Mimi Montgomery from Axios has been following this story, and as a small dog owner, for her, it's personal. Today's Monday, January 22nd. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So Mimi, I know there's been a ton of dog nappings in the area recently. What's going on?
Yeah, definitely. There have been already, I think over at least 11 dog nappings in DC so far in 2024, according to a Post article that came out. And, there's been a string of high-profile ones that have happened in the region over the past couple of years. So what seems to be going on is folks are out walking their dogs, hanging outside with their dogs, or, leaving their dogs in the car while they go and run a quick errand. And they're either getting robbed for their dogs, or their dogs are getting stolen while they, have them in the car or whatnot. So this is definitely something that has been in the news. You've probably heard about it, read about it, and folks understandably are really worried and scared for their dogs.
In terms of how this happened, it sounds like it's a few different ways, like dogs being forcibly taken, like by force, and then dogs who are like unattended being taken without the owner being there. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So that seems to be sort of like the most common ways this is happening. But then also there was a woman in Springfield who had 3 Frenchies, and someone like broke into her house to steal some of her dogs. And then there was another instance where someone had posted online that they wanted to sell their dog. And when they went to go meet this person who wanted to buy their dog from them, they just ended up getting robbed and the dog was stolen. There seems to be like a couple different ways this is happening, but primarily, people having the dog taken from them while they're out and about, or, taken from a car or whatnot.
You mentioned Frenchies. I'm thinking like, is there a kind of dog that is more at risk or is stolen more often? Like if you've got some sort of purebred, dog, is that more at risk than like other kinds of dogs?
Yeah, so it seems to be like, quote unquote designer dogs that are being most targeted, because folks will often drop like thousands of dollars on these dogs. So they're, high value and people can resell them. But yeah, so Frenchies are especially being targeted. I talked about how a lot of these cases have been high profile. Like a lot of the headlines that we've read have been about Frenchie napping. And so this company called AKC Reunite, which is like one of the microchip companies that people hook their dogs up with, French bulldogs have been their number one reported stolen breed each year since 2020. Those are really especially being targeted. And I asked the CEO of AKC Reunite why Frenchies, and he says, well, like they're compact, they're small, so like they're easier to pick up and steal than like a Great Dane or something like that. And they're also really, really popular right now. Like they were the AKC's number one breed last year, and they're just like easily recognizable. So folks, you're on the street, you see their little ears, their little smushed faces, that's a Frenchie. And they're also like really expensive. These dogs can often go for like, $5,000 upwards sometimes. And so they've just sort of become like a really sort of obvious and targeted breed for these folks who are looking to steal dogs.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess I think of dogs as like companions, but it's also important to remember that with some dogs, they're almost like luxury items. And when you're walking around with one, that might be something that folks who mean to do you harm might want to take to make money.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think what's like making this like super hard hitting for people is that obviously like we love our dogs. They're, our best friends, yada, yada, yada. But, I think it's important to remember that in an area like DC where, you have a lot of folks who might be putting off having kids for longer and whatnot, we have this sort of like fur baby movement that's happening where like our dogs are sort of like a lot of people's like kids in a way, and not only from like an emotional standpoint, but also from like a money standpoint. Like people drop a lot of money, not only to buy these dogs, but then just like also throughout their life. So it's like you have like a big emotional and then like financial investment in this animal that has become a part of your family. And so it like is really, really awful and like horrible for people when these animals, these members of the family are taken away from them.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun. But with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. The two partners, Chris and Matt Nace, were both born here and are local leaders who care deeply about the DC community. Paulson & Nace handles medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases when someone has been hurt by the negligence of others. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So, if you have been hurt or have lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com or call 202-463-1999.
Get out of the trenches of tedious tasks like managing order fulfillment and start growing your business with ShipStation. They'll help increase profitability by automating your workflow with their simple, easy-to-use dashboard. With it, you can pretty much do everything you need to quickly and easily. Update order information, print labels, compare rates, optimize shipments, and even set up automatic delivery notifications. And it doesn't matter where you sell. Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Shopify, ShipStation can integrate pretty much anywhere online. Another great thing about ShipStation? They can help reduce costs with industry-leading discounted rates from some of the biggest mail carriers. You might even be able to get up to 89% off USPS and UPS rates. So, make this year your most profitable one yet. Sign up for your free 30-day trial at ShipStation.com and use the code Spotify. That's ShipStation.com with the code Spotify.
So do we have any sense of who is doing the dog napping? And once they actually get the dog, like what happens next?
Yeah, it seems like it is people who are stealing them to resell them based on, the reporting that I did and what I've heard from folks. And so it sounds like, they are taking these dogs and then trying to resell them. And, the folks who have had their dogs stolen, are going to the police, filing police reports. The police are putting out, press releases with images of the dog and whatnot. And then in some cases, like folks are able to be reunited with their pets, but in other cases, they're not, which is really sad. And some of the stolen dogs are still missing. And there was a case, I believe, a couple of years ago where, a French bulldog was taken and it was actually later found dead. So it's really awful.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it's so sad. I feel awful for all these people.
So if someone does unfortunately get their dog stolen, what should they do? Like what should be their next step in terms of trying to get them back or get more information about what to do?
Totally. Well, I think it's important to mention that, I did ask someone from the police about this, and they said that if someone comes up to you on the street and tries to take your dog, this is a hard thing to do, but let them take the dog, if you were being held at gunpoint or whatnot. And then they recommend having some really good photos of your dog on your phone that you can then show to the police so that they can use them in a press release or whatnot, and to get a really good look of the person who might be trying to take your animal from you so that you can later then describe them to police. Definitely contact the police right away after it happens, file a police report, and, have all of that information handy that you can hand over to them so that they can use it in press releases and whatnot and get the word out. And definitely alert your microchip company if you have your dog registered with one, because then they can also sort of blast that out to all of their affiliates, like local vets and whatnot, and get the word out that this dog is missing too.
Yeah, your answer reminds me so much of this interview we did with Emily Davies about crime in DC, where she talked about how because of the rise in crime in DC, the guidance around it has really changed. And so With carjackings, for instance, they used to say like, oh, well, you probably won't be carjacked. It's very unlikely. And now the guidance that we're getting from officials is like, well, if you do get carjacked, here's what you need to know. The most important thing is to stay calm, things like that. And so we've had a real shift in how I think officials are talking about how we think about these crimes and if they might occur in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, totally. And, I talked to some folks in the area who own French bulldogs. And actually, full disclosure, I myself own a French bulldog.
So this is like personal for you then.
This is personal. I'm like, I have a vested interest in this for myself. I'm worried about my dog Ziggy. But yeah, so a lot of the folks I talk to, they are really like taking steps to sort of be super cautious when taking their dogs out. They are trying to sort of keep to high traffic areas when they're walking their dogs, trying to, if they have to go out at night, like maybe walking with like a partner or a friend so they're not alone. A lot of folks I spoke with are keeping, those like little personal alarms like on their dog's leash or something like that. And then, not walking with headphones in is something that dog walkers and some other folks I spoke with recommended so that you could, hear if someone comes up to you. And then, not using retractable leashes is another tip because the dog can get further away from you that way. And obviously, folks recommended getting your dog microchipped or using like an air tag. You can put them on their collars and whatnot. So yeah, people are really taking precautions and are pretty worried about this, if they have a dog in the city.
If you were interested in buying a dog, like let's say that you're in the market for a dog, are there things that you should be thinking about to avoid accidentally buying someone's dog that was like violently stolen from them?
One big thing is how much this dog is being sold for. So if it's like a designer dog and the price is pretty low, that's kind of a little suspicious. And then also you can often ask for like paperwork from someone if you're getting a dog for them. So like previous vet records and all that stuff. And if they don't have that handy, that's a little suspicious too. And then the AKC actually, you can often, if it's a dog, a breed that the AKC recognizes, you can register your dog with the AKC, or sometimes they'll have lists of breeders, whatnot. So that's another good way to go about it. So, see the dog's AKC registered, or, do some research. Is this person like a reputable breeder? Do they have like a website? All that good stuff. So it's kind of a bummer that this is something folks have to think about now, but definitely do your research, I would say, before buying a dog now.
I'm curious, is this like a DC specific issue, or is DC alone in this becoming a problem like this?
No, it seems like it's a nationwide thing. That group I mentioned, AKC Reunite, they have reported an 140% increase over the last 4 years of folks coming to them to report their dog being stolen. So it definitely seems like, it's a thing that's not just contained to here. You probably heard about this a couple years ago, but Lady Gaga's dog walker was shot and her Frenchies were stolen. So if it could happen to Lady Gaga, it could happen to any of us. So yeah, no, this is definitely like a thing that's happening all around us.
Mimi, are there any other tips that maybe people aren't really thinking about that might be a good way to keep people's dogs safe in DC?
And one other thing that a woman who I talked to who runs this group called DC Bulldog Meetups mentioned is maybe think twice before blasting sort of like, I just got this new puppy on social media, or like, we're going to go hang out at, this beer garden today or whatnot, just because, if that's all over social, that might be a way for folks who are sort of like researching people who they can rob to target you or whatnot. Just be cautious, make sure that you're walking in high traffic areas and not wearing your headphones and all that good stuff, and take care of your little furry friends.
That's great advice, just generally. Maybe we should all be a little more cautious about what we blast to networks of strangers on the internet.
Totally. Yeah. That's a great point.
Mimi, thank you so much for being here, and take care of Ziggy. Take care of that Frenchie.
I know. I will. Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with the Frenchie owner in your life. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then. My cat is like, can you give me 1 second?
No, you're good.
Decided this is her podcast. Okay. I think she's calmed down.